and welcome to the Writing Gym podcast. On today's episode, Annalisa talks with the amazing Gary Barnes about how to build your business to make over $100,000 a year. Do not miss this amazing opportunity to hear strategy from a high-performance business and sales coach. This episode is brought to you by Laurel Elite Books. Laurel Elite Books helps business owners to write, publish, and sell client magnet books to massively scale their businesses. They offer full-service luxury retreats that take you from idea to sold and offer a la carte publishing services. Check out their website at www.laurelelite.com. And now I'd like to introduce our resident writing coach, the gal who helps you pump your writing into publishing shape in the Writing Gym. Welcome back to the Writing Gym podcast, Annalisa Parent.
It is such a pleasure to be here with you, Andy. We have not done a podcast in this format in a while, and I'm really excited to be here speaking with you and speaking with Gary.
And now to introduce you all to our fabulous guest today. Gary Barnes is the Breakthrough Business Mastery Coach, a high-performance business and sales coach, popular international speaker, and award-winning #1 international Amazon best-selling author of 9 books. Gary's clients span over 7 countries, and he has been featured on ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, PBS, and TED Talks. He's the founder of Gary Barnes International, has created several successful businesses, personally selling over $280 million in products and services. Married over 40 years with adult sons, he has completed a world-class 40-foot firewalk, flown a World War II P-51 fighter, flown on a trapeze, driven in a destruction derby, his car was named the Purple Passion, completed a 75-foot bungee jump, and climbed 14,000-foot mountains. He's a drummer and a police academy graduate. He also understands dealing with adversity. He has fought a life-threatening illness and won. He believes that your worst day is the day you meet the man or woman you could have been. It's a choice. Thank you so much for joining us today, Gary.
Well, it's my pleasure and honor to join you both.
It sounds like you've led a very exciting life, Gary. So I want to get an idea of how you became an award-winning author. What was that process like for you? How did you decide to write a book?
You're going to really love the answer. It's always by accident. The way I describe myself is I'm a speaker that has had to become an author. And Annalisa knows this about me, so I'm very open about it. I don't like writing. I really don't. And plus, I never learned how to type. And the diagnosis that I dealt with was multiple sclerosis in '88, and I had very little feelings in my hands. And so this was my typing fingers. I call them Tweedledee and Tweedledum. And I think way faster than I can type. And so now I use voice-actuated software. But that story of the MS was actually the first one to come out. And it was right in the middle of my major career, which I own one of the largest financial planning firms as a solo producer in the country. And you don't tell people you're going to, cops. It wasn't the cops, it was the doctors. But the doctors sometimes think they're cops. But the doctors, think you're going to die. You don't want to tell people that and say, please give me your money. And so I never did anything with the story until about 16 years ago when I sold the financial planning practice.
Mm.
And then I wrote it down. I didn't think anybody was going to want to, read about it or hear about it. I thought it was kind of, well, doesn't everybody do this? And I think that is really part of people forget facts and they remember stories. And since we all have that unique story that in this context, it's like a snowflake, everyone is different, is that we think it's ordinary. What we do is, you said you led an exciting life. I go, well, it's normal. Doesn't everybody do this? And that's where I think it really giving people permission to share that story, to get it into print, and to be able to share it for generations, not just with their families, but with the extended world.
That's a really good point. I mean, several good points. One of them is about everyone telling their story, and the other is about leaving a legacy, which is something that a lot of people really think about, whether they are writing a business book or a memoir or even fiction. All of those can be our legacy to last essentially forever. So how does it feel for you, Gary, to have that legacy? What is that like?
For me, it's satisfying, I guess would be the word for that comes up for me immediately. And Lisa, you asked me questions that I've never been asked on any interview. So this is great. But really,
I think you're not the first person to say that, actually.
You're not.
Yeah, just remember that. I don't get mad. I just get even. I learned that in the police academy.
Right. I look forward to that.
Yeah, it really is satisfying. My children, our sons, actually come to my talks to hear my stories that I think I've told them. And now there's books. In fact, the How a Beaver Saved My Life, which is the MS story. My oldest son was at a leads group a couple of weeks ago, and there was a woman there talking about her daughter dealing with MS and had gone back to the Mayo Clinic. Well, he talked to her after the meeting and said, well, my dad has this book. And she goes, what's the title? And he told her, and she says, I have that book. And he goes, really? She goes, yeah, someone at the Mayo Clinic gave it to me.
Oh my gosh.
And he said, have you read it? She goes, no, but I haven't. But she wanted to meet me, and we're scheduling to get together. But the idea of having my book somewhere that I have no idea how it got there, to have somebody else give it to them because of a benefit, that to me is very fulfilling, very satisfying.
Yeah, I mean, you're really talking about, the impact of a book. It goes beyond our legacy for the people we love, to leave our stories behind, but also just being able to make that impact to help people's lives now through a book, to help people in the future through a book, and to help people we may never meet through a book. And those are all really amazing impacts. And I know that you're a fabulous storyteller, Gary. So I know that you must have a story about, a time when a book of yours, you kind of found out, this was a story of that vein where you kind of found out that a book of yours had some impact. Can you think of another time, where you had one of those moving moments of, wow, this really helped someone, in a place or in a way that I never could have imagined? And while you're thinking about that, I will share, and Andi, I haven't told you this yet, but I talked with a writer today who listened to our podcast and was talking about how much it had impacted his writing and how grateful he was. And that was just so amazing to hear, because sometimes, with books, with podcasts, you put these productions out into the void, and you don't know, if they end up at the Mayo Clinic or, in Zimbabwe. You have no idea where these things are going or who's listening or how it's impacting people. So that was really powerful. So thank you to our listeners for listening and, for getting something out of these podcasts for your writing. So, segue and podcast talk done. Gary, tell us about the impact of one of your books.
And before I go right into that, I'd like to talk to your audience as well and just say, guys, when you have an impact for what the Writing Gym is doing for you, reach back out and share your stories with them, because it gives us that impetus, that energy. Because there's times that we don't want to do what we do anymore, and we go, is it really making a difference? And, it really would make a difference for them. So I just want to give that shout out for you guys.
Thank you.
I really believe there are no accidents. And a couple of months ago, I was on my way to Florida to work with one of my clients. I was supposed to go to Dallas and transfer and then go on into Boca Raton. And I get to the airport here in Denver, and my flight is delayed. It was going to be delayed long enough to where I was going to miss my connection in Dallas. Well, I have a super agent, and I called her. I said, okay, save me, fix me. And she goes, okay, there's a gate right next to where you're standing. Go there and say this. So I'm now wanting to get on a flight that I'm not supposed to be on. It has closed, and the last passenger is already on the plane. I'm going, is there any way? I'm smiling. I'm not this jerk of a person banging, I got to get there, whatever. And my agents in my ear say, just say that and now be quiet. Just let her do it. I ended up on the flight. I wasn't supposed to be on that flight. Going to a different city to get down to Boca Raton. I think I ended up in Pittsburgh and then transferred down. So I'm walking on the airplane, and it's a stretch. So there's two sections of exit row seats. And as I get to the second section, there's a steward there, and he goes, is this your seat? And there's an aisle exit row. You don't get aisle exit rows, and I go, no, my seat's back there in the middle. He goes, no, that's your seat. Okay, so I'm on a plane that I'm not supposed to be on. I'm in a seat that I'm not supposed to be in. There's also an empty seat between me and the guy that's on the window seat. So I'm going, this is great. Thank you. The stars are aligning. I'm supposed to be on this airplane. Well, they started the service, and I had some books that I needed to autograph and to personalize for people. And I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and get it done on flight. And so I was signing them. And then because I had a seat empty next to me, I was sitting them on the seat, just kind of stacking them up. One of the flight attendants came by, and she looked down, and she goes, oh, I love animal books. And then she looks and goes, that's you. And I said, yeah. We have to talk just maybe two sentences. And I said, I have an extra book. Could I give you a book? She goes, no one's ever given me a book before. I would love it. So we go along, and so I personalized it to her. And so she comes along with the tray or the card for the food and everything. And I give her the book, and she takes the book, and she goes, oh, she's hugging the book. She doesn't know what the book is about. Mm-hmm. And so she's giving, she takes a handful of peanuts and crackers and just says, here. I've got all this stuff on my tray, and the guy's sitting next to me going, what's going on? She goes, oh, do you want some too? She goes, can I give you free drinks for the rest of the flight? I go, I don't drink. She goes, what about a sandwich? And she forces a sandwich on me. So anyway, so she goes ahead and goes back to the back of the plane, and it's a fairly long flight. And it was unusual because all of the flight attendants disappeared for over a half an hour. And so we get ready to land, we land. And the steward that got me my seat, I get up to leave, and he goes, you really are a special person. Well, what? He goes, we've been in the back of the plane reading your book. Oh. And so the entire flight crew was reading my book on the flight. As I got off that flight, my connecting flight happened to be only one gate over. So I'm waiting, wanting to get a picture, if I could, with this flight attendant, because I knew she was changing, she was done. And so she came over and saw me, ran up to me, gave me a hug, and said, you don't know how much of that book I needed today. And I have no idea what she was going through. I have never met her since, and there's been no contact. But that was all serendipity. I mean, there was no reason I was supposed to be on the flight in that seat. I had an extra book, that's a cardinal sin if we don't have extras in our carry-ons. But that day I made a difference, and I don't even know how. Yeah. And the why doesn't matter. But we were there facilitating a connection.
Oh, that is a beautiful story. And that's a story about changing someone's life in a very sort of personal and intimate way. There are books that do that. We can also really impact people in their businesses and in what they do. I mean, as you both know, my book is about writing, right? And so now there are people who hopefully laugh a little bit when they read my book. But really, learning how to do something. And so that is really important too. So there are lots of ways that we can have impacts with our books. And I just happen to know about you, Gary, that you're someone who advocates to the business owners with whom you work that they should all have a book. So tell us a little bit more about that. Why do you tell them, a book is a must-have?
And it really is. And thank you for that, because a book is a must-have. In today's world, in today's business world, where there is so much what I call white noise, we get lost out there. And there's a process that I trained from that's called elevate and separate. And what that does is I am not better than, I'm different from. A book transcends you from everyone else that seemingly does what you do. And when I first wrote that, the How a Beaver Saved My Life, which, by the way, wasn't the original title. The original title was Into the Night, the Road from Adversity to Triumph. And then a woman had heard me speak, bought the book, and sent me a 3.5-foot beaver. And there's a story about that. So we tore the covers off, and it turned into How a Beaver Saved My Life. And what happened was it opened all kinds of doors. It took me to 4 shows, syndicated shows on PBS. It took me to every single ABC, NBC, all of that stuff came out of that first book. TEDx called me to do the Beaver story. They had been given the book, they read the story, and they called me and said, well, you've got to be on the TEDx stage with us. And so what it does, it validates and makes you, quote, safe to meeting planners, to producers. In fact, we had such a good relationship on the PBS original shows that I did. They found out my 9th book released in January, and they called me and they said, could we have you come back? And so we're filming again on PBS for 2 more shows in September. And so what it does, it truly opens up the world. I tell you, if you're a plumber, you've got to have a book. If you're an architect, if you're a doctor, it doesn't matter what you do or how you do it. That book is such, somehow, if it's in print, we believe it. I mean, that's why the internet's so dangerous. Well, it's got to be true. It's on the internet.
Yeah.
And the same thing with books. And even though we did the book, but it becomes something of a calling card. I've had people drive 100 miles because they didn't want to trust the mails to get the books on time to come and buy additional books because they bent me on an airplane. I've had people say, I've never met a real life author before. Really? Okay. And so to us, it's just ordinary. I mean, this is the world we live in. Mm-hmm. But to the general public, it is something that truly creates you into a unique celebrity in a positive way.
Yeah, absolutely. And, having gone to your most recent boot camp, you made a really good distinction between, marketing and selling and PR, which I thought was really brilliant. And a book is PR. Right? It's getting you known. It's getting you out there, and not like an ad in the yellow pages or something. This is a way where you really get to share who you are, what you do, what your message is, what makes you different from others who are out there, and how they might do those things. Because it's long, a book. Even a short book is a long conversation between you and the reader for them to get to know you and say, hey, this is somebody who might be able to help me with some of my problems. Or, no, this isn't the right person for my problem, but that was a really entertaining book. Whatever it is, but you're in a conversation with that person.
The other thing is that, it's been called also, if it's a smaller book, is a business card book. Mm-hmm. But no matter what the book is, I think you have the same situation whenever you go to a conference and they find out what you guys do. People are constantly giving you books. Mm-hmm. I've got probably 100 books beside my desk that I don't know if I'll ever get to them, but what don't I do? I don't throw them away. Yeah. You never throw, that's something that's ingrained in our society. You don't throw a book away. You look maybe how to give it away, but then when somebody signs it, I got a whole section in my library that I tell my kids, I go, these are personalized. These are whatever. They go, so? I go, but just look, you might be someone of interest. But yeah, it's again that credibility piece that opens doors. And you make money by having the book. I mean, there is a revenue there, but there's very few, and I'm going to get this wrong probably now that we're talking about England, J.K. Rowling's.
Yeah.
Oh, did I get it right?
J.K. Rowling. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. There's very few of them that go out and actually hit it's not even a home run. I mean, it just, they own the whole team. And every time they come out, they have, hundreds of thousands of copies in the first few hours that run off the shelves. It's really about getting your story out, having those opportunities that wouldn't be there without the book. Having those there, and you think it's magical, but it's an integral piece of the puzzle to have a complete puzzle. And if you don't have that, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
I want to ask a question. Annalisa, you mentioned his boot camp. Can you let our listeners know what that is?
Are you talking to me or Annalisa?
Oh, I don't have a boot camp, but I want to know about yours.
Yeah. Gary, tell us about your boot camp.
Well, I do 2 3-day boot camps per year called Breakthrough Business Mastery. And part of the uniqueness of it, and Annalisa was there last time for her first time, and I'm excited that this coming July, she's going to be speaking. So we're excited to have her on stage. Day one is about the psychological and emotional aspects of building a business. And almost every other program I've ever seen out there is all about techniques and strategies and all the things to do. People are looking for the magic bullet, but 80% of success is coming out of this 6 to 12 inches here. And so we really delve into that. And my early background was psychology and theology, so I actually have some background. So I'm not talking off the top of my head. And then at the end of that, we have a 7th degree black belt that leads everyone through the board break experience, which is really, really cool. In fact, on the video, the promo video for the boot camp, we isolated, Annalisa, you are so cool coming off that board break. I mean, it was just like, it was a combination of excitement and surprise.
I was excited. And of all the 100 or however many people there, I'm the one breaking the board in the video and then jumping up and down like a kid. So nobody who knows me is surprised at that reaction.
Yeah, we're all kids. And then Saturday and Sunday is all about the structure and techniques. I have been building businesses for over 40 years, so it's all coming out of my experience and tools and strategies that I've created. And so it is a unique process that people go through. And if they're willing, and this is really the key, if they're willing to apply some of not all, nobody's ever going to do all, but if they'll apply some of that information on Monday morning, they will see an increase in their business. A lot of people that do come see a doubling of their business within 6 to 12 months. And it's not working longer. That's the big thing. They're not working harder. They're working deliberately, on focus, on point. And we show people exactly how to do that. Sunday, actually, we do a speak off. So we have people from the audience that have volunteered that actually are able to go on stage, do a couple of minutes of their talk, and then they get feedback from the professionals in the audience. And so we're happy to do that. And then they come back up and do it again. Everything, it just, it goes so fast. I mean, and we got some unique new things this time, which this is my 34th boot camp in July 20, 21, and 22. But if I don't do it differently a little bit every time, I get bored. So I'm like Annalisa, I'm a little kid at heart. And my wife keeps telling me I'm not, but I act like it. It truly is breakthrough business mastery, because people are struggling out there. They're stuck. They don't know. They're not getting that return on the time, energy, and money that they're putting into their business. And unfortunately, unless they apply some of these things, like get a book out, in 5 years, 3 years, they're not going to be in business anymore because they say it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And it's not that it doesn't work. They didn't know how to work it.
Right. That's a really good distinction, and I just want to publicly thank you for inviting me to speak at the upcoming boot camp. I'm super excited to talk about how a book can really boost your business. And I think that you're a really good example for so many business owners out there who would say, like I'm not a writer. I don't like to write. It's not my thing. I can't write a book because I failed English class. I hated English class. My English teacher hated me. Whatever it is, people have these reasons, and they absolutely can write a book. And, sometimes it's just about the right coaching. So, we help business owners do that every day, and we love what we do.
Well, the way I describe you is you make us look good.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're that lump of clay. We've got, you've heard me that another Garyism is that I am the subject, but I'm not the message. And so you take me as the subject, the message, and then recalibrate it, put it into a different form, and then allow it to come out, and people go, wow, that's cool. Go, I have that connection, but I don't have to be the expert in. I couldn't tell you what a dangling participle or an adverb or a verb. I don't know. I don't care. That's the other part. I really don't care. But to have it read well is so different from transcribing my speak. If people just take what they speak and put it into a book, it's going to read really poorly. People will not get through it. It'll be aggravating for people. So without losing the voice, but you massage it, so you decorate it, put it into a format, into a process that people go, wow, now I get it. And that's really what we want.
Yeah.
My job is not writing a book. My job is to speak and deal with the people. The technical side of writing a book, that's yours.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we're not using the specialty people in our lives, we're missing the boat.
That is a really, really, really good point. And, I also like your quality point, because there are programs out there who will invite you for a weekend. You speak into your smartphone and bada boom, bada bing, you've quote unquote got a book. And I guess technically it's a book, but the thing is, if your message is disguised in sloppy, murky mess, then no one's going to want to read it. And that really reflects on you as an entrepreneur. I mean, even if you're a plumber and, people are going to think, wow, his book's a mess. He must be a terrible plumber. And maybe you're the world's best plumber. But, having the right help, hiring that professional, as you say, I have an accountant because, well, I'm glad I have an accountant, that's not my area of expertise. I have Andi. She's the personal trainer in the writing gym that, that's her area of expertise. That's what she does. And having the courage, I think, to let those people, to invite those people into your life to help you is really, really powerful.
Well, it's a team. And if we put out something that's not a good reflection of who we are, now it's better to have not done it at all. Mm-hmm. There are some people out there right now that I know they put out really stupid quote books to where there's like 2 or 3 words to a page, and it's like, yeah, like you said, it qualifies as a book. It has, the US, whatever this ISBN number. So it has all of the trappings of a book, but then you open it up and it why? What is it that I really get out of this when it may not even be your quotes? It's just quotes of dead people. And so it really almost to me is a bait and switch. And you're not going to go very far with something like that. Yeah,
that's a really good point because, one of the phrases out there is content is king. And the thing is, the quality of the content matters. I help people to write books. If I posted a recipe every day, well, technically I'd be putting content out there in the world, but I'm not a chef, so that would be silly. And, when I say it in that way, I think most people listening can think, oh yeah, that would be ridiculous. That's silly. But there are so many writers who really got to cheat in that way to get around it. And I would guess I would guess, Gary and Andi, that they're cheating because they don't know how to do it in the way that they want. They've kind of got this vision, like, oh, I want a book, but I don't know how to do that. And I think we come back to that problem, like, okay, get the right professional to help move you through that.
Well, I think there's something else. They don't know they're cheating. The problem is there are gurus out there, quote, that are teaching this is how you do it. And those of us that have been around a while, realize it's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken pipe. It might stop the water for a few minutes, but long term, it's not going to serve you. And so they're looking for that quick fix. They're looking for, and unfortunately, a lot of people want that. They want, my head hurts, give me an aspirin. They don't care that there's an underlying cause of that headache. They just want that pain to go away. And like you were mentioning, Annalisa, the weekend warrior thing, come in 3 days later, you have your book. I don't know how you do that. It just, how do you do anything of quality like that?
You don't.
And you really don't. And so is there an investment of time, money, and energy? Yes, in anything we do. But that book is going to be around for a long time, hopefully. It's not just a stopgap. It's something that's going to have a life of its own. And no matter where it goes, it's going to be a reflection on you, whether or not you're still on the plane here with everybody else or not. And so what do you really want it to do? And so, if you're wanting to go down to Kinko's or someplace and throw something together and call it a book, well, you're going to get that response back. And that's my opinion.
Yeah, well, and that's really interesting because if we go back to your story on the airplane, why did your book have an impact? Because it was heartfelt, it was real, it was authentic, it was well written, it was so many of those things. Now imagine a very different scenario where Parallel Universe Gary Barnes has this book of quotes from George Washington and Abraham Lincoln and whatever, and the person reads it in the back and they might giggle or they might feel a moment of insight, but it wouldn't have the impact that Gary Barnes' personal story, personal journey had on this person. So that's the cheat, really. I mean, right there, what is that expression from elementary school? Like, cheaters only cheat themselves or something like that. But it's true. Like, you can put together this, spoken into your phone book. You can put together a quote book. You can put together, I don't know, drawings that you draw on the receipts while you're waiting for the bus, just to have a book with your name on it. But none of those things are going to have that impact ultimately. And here's my opinion. I think that authors who do that are really just cheating themselves because they've missed that opportunity to have that conversation, to reach that person, to talk with that person in a meaningful way. And it may be that person is in legitimate pain, is looking for an answer, needs, something to get them from a bad place to a better place.
Well, and you don't want your book to become a doorstop. They won't throw it away. They'll utilize it. But it's really about a word you use. It's more than content. It's the message. Mm-hmm. It truly is that.
Well, and it's also the fact that, and Gary, you mentioned this earlier, a book lends validity and credibility not only to your work, but you as a person. And as soon as you've published something, especially if it's not quality content, it's out there. And Google is a strong tool that pretty much everyone has. And the instant that they Google your name and they see this mishmash of terrible online published, badly edited, poor grammar thing, that's their opinion of you. And it doesn't matter if you've gone on to make $1 bazillion in the future because they read that one little thing and immediately, people change their opinion at the turn of a hat. And it doesn't take a lot for someone to go, oh, well, done with that. So, be so careful about what you put out there and making sure that everything that you do is as good as it can be. And it's really quality content and you're getting experts in to get that kind of opinion and getting the help that you need from good sources rather than that kind of thing makes all the difference in the world.
Well, and I know you guys, people think about writing a book as the tactical element of putting words on paper and then binding it up and whatever. It is so much more than that. Who's your market? Who do you want to attract? Who do you want to impact? What is the cover? People don't realize the cover can make or break on the inside. Have you ever done, and I said this, and I don't remember the original title, Annalisa, at the boot camp, but Think and Grow Rich was not the original title of Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah, it was like the 62 strategies to something or other.
To be successful. It was really, and it was dying. They were going to throw it away. And so they went to Think and Grow Rich, and it's the second, I believe it is still true, it's second only to the Bible in the number of copies out there in the world.
Wow.
And so it was that cover that made the difference with the titling.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, you guys go through the whole beginning to end.
Idea to sold.
The goal is not just to have a piece of paper with your name on it. I mean, if that's the goal, then we can go down and do whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point as well, because I talk to a lot of would-be authors and they say, well, I'm just going to go and get a free image and I'm going to put it on. And we have that phrase, don't judge a book by its cover. And we all think that we shouldn't, but we all do. And, if you have a cover that looks like it was designed by an amateur, no one's going to buy that book. And so many authors come to me and they say, I published my own book and I designed my cover, or I paid somebody $10 to design my cover, and how come it's not selling on Amazon? Well, packaging matters. You can just walk down the store of any retail store, grocery store, and look at the ridiculous things that they are selling, and people are buying them for the package. I am just as guilty. This soap in a super cool container, and my impulse was, I want that. Right. Thankfully, I've got, like a neocortex that jumped in and was like, yeah, you don't need that. But the emotional impulse was, that's really cool. I want it. And, covers are the same thing. We really need to be packaging our books well. Now, of course, the interior, the message, the content needs to be good as well. But we're not going to draw people in if our cover isn't appealing, if it isn't marketable. And our team has marketers. Our team has branders. It's not me doing this stuff. This is not my area of expertise. We have people on the team who specialize in how to make book covers appealing. So if we want to talk about, specialists again, like niching down to that specialist of specialists is also important.
A bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
And just look at how they position their books. And you're going to see which ones catch your eye and why.
Mm-hmm.
And how true what you just said is so critical. And again, why are you doing it? At the boot camp, we had talked about there's two statements. One is, so what? I wrote a book, so what? That's the end, it's a period. The question or the statement that I really attach to is, so that.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a never-ending process of that next level, that next layer. I'm going to this. We don't know where doing the webinar tonight, the podcast with you guys, so that we can touch more lives. I don't know where it's going to go. There was no agenda to it, but there was another touch, another opportunity to have a potential, at least, impact with individuals that all they need is permission, really, to become that author.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't control the results, but we can control the activity.
Mm-hmm.
Trust the instinct. Get the story out. Get the information out. Get your uniqueness out. Mm-hmm. Allow your community that is looking for you to be able to see you. And the best way I know to do that, even beyond the stage, is the book. Because when I get off the stage, the number one question that I get asked is, do you have a book? Can I buy your book? And if I don't do that, I have dishonored that stage, because they want to take a piece of me home with them. Mm-hmm. Not because of me, but because of something I said that had an impact for them. And so to truly be of service to them, we have an obligation, in my mind, to be able to do this and to be able to provide that for
Wow. Gary, usually at the end of the episode, we ask our guests to give their one big piece of advice to aspiring writers, but I feel like you just did. I didn't need to ask that question because you just went through it. That's amazing advice. And I love, you said you can't control the results, but you can control your actions.
Yes.
I love that. In my personal training sessions, I'm 100% going to bring that up with the writers that we work with, because I feel like, you can control your actions in the situation, and, at the end, we'll figure out the results. Thank you so much, Gary. That's amazing.
Well, you're welcome. The other thing I'd like to leave everybody with is this thought. And it's not mine. I've got it from somebody else. But to really embrace the concept of becoming perfectly imperfect. Just do it. Just get it out. The people around you will help you get it to a form that's usable. But if we're waiting to become perfect to be able to do anything, we'll just never get there.
I love that. Perfectly imperfect. Thank you so much for joining us, Gary. It's been absolutely amazing to talk with you today.
Well, Andi, it's good to meet you. I'm looking forward to getting to know you more. And Annalisa, as always, you're such a personality. You're so much fun. When we get together, you're a kick. So I just, anybody that's thinking about connecting, you made that offer originally about people reaching out to you. Guys, gals, please do it. You'll be glad you did.
Thank you, Gary.
You're welcome.
And we will make sure and post links to Gary's website in the show notes at www.writing-gym.com/breakthrough. Thank you so much for listening to the Writing Gym podcast. We hope that you enjoyed this episode with Gary Barnes. Please make sure and check out all of our links in the show notes, and especially check out the link to our amazing sponsor, Laurel Elite Books. Laurel Elite Books help business owners to write, publish, and sell client magnet books to massively scale their businesses. They offer full-service luxury retreats that take you from idea to sold and offer a la carte publishing services. If you are an entrepreneur that is looking to massively scale your business with a book, you have to check out Laurel Elite. Go to www.laurelelite.com today. Thank you, and happy writing.